So all this food right here cost me a grand total of £29.11. And there's a lot of calories and a lot of protein. So you might be wondering how it's possible.
Well, what I did was I walked to the shop, which is quite an important step to be fair. Then I purchased mainly whole healthy foods that are pretty cheap and not foods that I call convenience foods or processed foods. And then I walked out and yeah, that's pretty much it.
So an ideal food shop for bulking on a budget or just shopping in general. Obviously we need a decent amount of protein. It's got to be somewhat healthy, so we've got to have foods that are not just decent in macros, but we need some decent micronutrients as well. And you've just got to enjoy your food. So hopefully these sources are going to help you out. Anyway, what we've got on this side of the table, we've got all the protein sources along with the carbohydrates in the middle of the table, and to the far right we have the fat sources. Obviously there's going to be some trace proteins, trace fats, but I'm talking about like the primary macro in each food. So what we'll do, we'll start off with the protein sources first, because it's not going to be groundbreaking information that you need a decent amount of protein for you to make gains. The first product we have is some Greek yogurt. So this 500 gram tub costs us 85p, and per 100 grams there's 6 grams of protein. That's pretty decent. Next up, we've got a pack of tuna. So one tin equates to around 67p, and per tin we've got 25 grams of protein. Decent hit of protein, very cheap. Next up, probably no surprises here, but some eggs. So for a medium egg, you're talking around 6 grams of protein, and it's gonna set you back 18p per egg. Next, what I'll do is address the elephant in the room. So whey protein, another obvious one. So roughly on average, a scoop of protein should cost you around 70p. I'm fortunate enough to get mine free because I'm supported by Protein World. So if you want discount off whey protein or any products in general, any supplements, use code PWBRAD for 40% off. Next up, another obvious one, but we've got to have some chicken. So here we have some chicken breast. But if I was doing this for as cheap as possible, I'd go for some chicken thighs. So per 100 grams of chicken thighs, you're talking around 17 grams of protein. So not as much, but per kilo, it's only costing you £2.85. And for a kilo of chicken breast, you're talking like £6.50, £6.60. And the last direct source of protein is beef mince. So I've got burgers here just because I enjoy eating burgers, but if you just go for the normal beef mince, it's gonna cost you around £6.80 or so per kilo. Okay, now what we're gonna do is move on to the carbohydrate sources. So a very common one for bodybuilders, some rice. So what we've got here is just some long grain white rice. So per kilo, you're talking at £1.75. So if you're having 100 grams a day, it's gonna last you over a week. Next, what we've got is another one of my favorites. So we've got some pasta. So for this 500 gram packet, it's only gonna cost us 41p. And something to point out as well, for all of these sources, it's not just carbs, that's just a primary macronutrient. So pasta, personally, one of my favorites when I'm bulking. And then we've got baked beans. This will never fall out of my diet, whether I'm bulking, cutting, or whatever. So per one tin at Aldi, you're talking 28p. And with the carbs, there's actually a fair bit of protein. So per half a tin, so like that's kind of the serving size I'd usually go for, there's 7.8 grams of protein. Obviously not a complete protein, but it's decent nevertheless, and you know, easy to get down, tastes good, decent amount of carbs, ideal. Next up, to complement the beans, for me anyway, a loaf of bread. You can get like a wholemeal loaf of bread for like 39p. So obviously decent carbs, bit of trace protein, decent amount of fiber as well, can't go amiss. Next up, my absolute like go-to for when I'm dieting, big old bowl of oats. So one packet of a kilo of oats, you're talking 70p, which is very cheap, decent amount of fiber, complex carbs. For me, it's essential when I'm dieting. When I'm at the start of the bulk, it's also pretty important. So oats, if you're not having that already, I'd strongly recommend, especially when you're on a budget. Next, because we care about our health, a lot of micronutrients here. So a mixed bag of frozen veg is going to cost us £1. So a pound for a kilo of veg, that is pretty solid. Bananas, again, good micros. A pack of 5 and not 3 will cost us 85p. So decent amount of potassium, decent micros, just have it with your oats, it's nice. Something else I put in with my oats or pancakes is some berries. So here we have some blueberries. However, if you want to be more cost effective, I'd go for some mixed berries. So for a kilo of mixed berries, it's only gonna cost you £3. Potatoes is another staple when I'm dieting, not so much when I'm bulking, just because they are so satiating, but for a kilo, you're talking a pound. However, I think this is like 2 kilos. This feels quite quite heavy, or I'm just getting weak. So potatoes are good. So with the pasta, you're going to need some pasta sauce, unless you're a bit of a psychopath and just have white pasta, that's a bit weird. For one of these, it's gonna cost you around 89 pence. This is actually a pasta bake sauce, but normally I'd just use normal, well, mushroom and tomato pasta sauce is the usual in it. That's the one I go to. And last but not least, this is actually very overlooked from people. So when you're in a bulking phase, you're struggling to get calories in, you want like low volume foods that also have like a decent amount of micronutrient value. Granola, not necessarily this one because it's just like the very basic granola, but for £1.75 from Aldi, you can get like almonds, dried fruit in the granola. Just something nice you can add to your oats or your cereal. And then lastly, the fat sauces. So we've only got 2 direct fat sauces here. However, with like the chicken thighs, the beef mince, the granola, the eggs, we've got a lot of trace fats that will give us a sufficient amount of fats for this diet. So we'll start off with peanut butter. So for 240 grams, it's gonna cost us £1.19. Decent, healthy fats, decent amount of protein, and you know what, it's quite versatile. You can put it on a lot of things. And lastly, we've got some cheese. So although this is a fat sauce, I've actually gone for half fat cheese. And like I said earlier, because I've got a decent amount of fats coming from elsewhere in the diet, I don't need to be going too crazy with full fat cheese. So because the macros are pretty good with the reduced fat, it allows us to be a little bit more flexible with our diet, and obviously some micronutrient value in there as well. So these foods are just ideas. I'm not saying these are the only foods you should eat. Like for example, for me, for a fat sauce, I have quite a bit of dark chocolate. However, when you think of the cost breakdown for what you're getting, it's actually quite expensive. So if we're trying to reduce cost, I wouldn't actually advise that. So hopefully that was food for thought. That wasn't an intentional pun, but there you go. Hopefully this video was helpful. Drop it a like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video.